Wonderful. So, Erik, tell me, how do you feel now? That's
Well, I'm
not a typical
happy to
question.
be sitting here and talking to you, and excited to take part in your ambitious world record-breaking effort.
Amazing. And we are so glad as well to onboard you, Erik Visser, right? That's how I should maybe pronounce, who is today representing Netherlands. So, Erik, could you share with us, the maybe the questions most of the people are coming to ask as advice from you, and what type of advice you give them?
Well, it's very that's an interesting question, Laura. So I'd say that as you lose your hair and grow in age and career, people come to you for general advice, not necessarily always the operational elements. So how do you manage? How do you start? How do you develop a strategy? How do you convert your agenda into clear priorities? And how do you drive them into making them a success? It seems a lot of times they're very obvious things, yet at the same time difficult to realize and convert to the desired outcome. So how do you get from defining your key challenges and your key focus into then converting it into actions that actually bring you to to there where you want to be? And it can be, of course, very different for any company. So
Mhm.
discussions that I might have about leadership or change are not necessarily related to my specific industry, but much more broader. Because in the end, uh, every company, small or big, or whatever industry it is going to face the same challenges, and the same challenges that can be addressed by a similar approach.
I see. So it's in a way like taking a big idea or big concept and kind of grounding that to reality, right? That's most likely how I could
Well, a lot
summarize.
of people, a lot of companies have very strong ambitions, and of course, it's very positive. Uh, but you also want to make sure that you get somewhere. So you need to do clear goal setting, and then also find the people and the means and the processes to get there. And once we start with a company, when you have startups, they're very small and they might be all over the place. And every little step of progress is a positive. And we move further on, then we uh, have different stakeholders and have to please them as well and make sure that we bring them along in whatever we want to achieve. And those achievements become broader. The impact of companies become bigger.
Mm,
So there's different elements to take into consideration. And that growth path, some people are fantastically good at developing ideas. Others are good at growing the business, and others are very good at managing. And you probably in the landscape, business or organizational landscape, you need all of those. I think most important is that people need to recognize where is my strength and where can I deliver value, and when might it be good for me to do a step aside and bring someone in that can help me get to that next level, whatever the next level may be.
I see. And talking now about your company, the one you are representing, Hamlet Protein, could you share with us the things we should like know about what do you do, guys? What's the context around the industry, and these type of things?
Well, Hammer Protein focuses on specialty ingredients for young animal nutrition. So young animals in the first life stage cannot digest feed the proper way, similar to human beings. So we focus on providing ingredients that help them in the first life stage, because we know by addressing whatever challenge they may have, can drive a better performance throughout the life cycle. And especially the gut system is not fully developed with young animals. And so we create a vegetable protein source that can be included in the diet of young animals, and that drives, like we like to say, drives health through nutrition. So without medication, and with a natural resource, we provide high quality ingredients for young animal
Mm,
nutrition that will not only help them deliver value going forward, but also develop a proper and good gut system, which is the most determining factor for the development of an animal. And
mm.
that's what we do worldwide. It's a global enterprise, a global business. It's quite technical from the research part. We do a lot of trials together with customers, universities, and research institutes. We like to think that in the segment that we operate in, we are the benchmark in our industry.
Wonderful. I loved when I opened your website and when we had the chat on LinkedIn. I loved your mission, even though I know that there might be, people thinking that, oh gosh, they are producing something for the, for the animals, because we always have these like like extremists, right, on both edges. But yeah, when I saw the mission and how you guys are tackling that in your entire end-to-end processes, as you say, with universities and clients and researchers, it's just yeah, it just shows me that you are dealing with the root causes as well, not only with the kind of uh, yeah, looking at the consequences and creating more consequences. And now going back to the world record question, let's try to answer, how is then the world better off because Hamlet protein is in it?
Well, Laura, when you first asked me that question, I was reluctant to participate because it's quite presumptuous to say the world is better off because I'm in it or because my company is in it. And you said, no, 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 no. What you do is actually quite relevant. I mean, you think you have a part in this effort that we're undertaking together with other leaders around the world. And so I think first and foremost, all individuals and all companies can contribute to create a better world. And everyone will have a different definition of what that better world will be,
Mm,
whether it's diversity, social elements, whether it's the environment, climate. So there's many different axes on which we can qualify a company as being responsible of contributing to a better world. And I think, in essence, we all can contribute more than we think, and I think we probably do. Um, and every individual in a company and every company organization can make a difference in his or her own area. So we believe that we contribute first to feeding the world. And we have a growing world population, and that growing world population is gonna need more safe feed to create safe food. We want to do so with less impact on the natural resources. So we want to make that food as efficient as possible so that we need less feed to create the food that we need. Um, and of course, you mentioned it briefly. There's always going to be people that debate whether or not you should eat
mm,
animal proteins. Uh, I think we believe need all protein sources, whether it's natural or from animal origin. Not only because there's a global demand and that global demand is increasing, and that's not only because the world population is growing, but we also have more than 1 billion people around the world that still live in poverty. And the first thing that people want to do once they get a slight increase in income, they end up wanting to eat animal protein, whether it's chicken, meat from, or whatever. So I
mm,
don't believe that it should be the only diet source, but it can serve as a part of a diet source. And we're going to need all those diet sources if we want to feed that growing world population. And what do we do to contribute to a more responsible and sustainable supply chain is that we source our raw materials from responsible origin so that they are free of habitat conversion or
mm,
biodiversity disruption. And what we do is we drive efficiency in the supply chain. So that means that we try to create more efficient diets so animals need less feed to grow. And finally, we do that to fit within a diet without medication. So our
Mhm.
natural ingredients contribute to an antibiotic and medication-free diet and can still deliver performance. So for everything that happens around the world, for all the good intentions, the intention alone will not make them difference, but creating a product that can actually perform and be an alternative to current products that are out there and have less sustainable footprint, and then you can really make a difference. And I believe that that's where we are at Hamlet Protein. So in summary,
Mm,
what we do is we provide a diet that is based on natural ingredients that helps the performance versus alternatives. And we do so by sustainably sourcing our raw materials and thus drive increased performance in animal production to support
mhm.
feeding and growing world population.
Mm. I love so many aspects of that. That I mean, the question itself didn't scare you. You know, the question itself kind of attracted you to participate in this world record. Um, and going now, let's say towards the future. Let's try just to, I don't know, to dream or to envision if there was a possibility to make one major change, like a leverage for making that impact, even bigger, even bolder. What that one thing would be then, Erik?
For me, it's about collaboration. So what we see there is a high level, well, should you call it selfishness? So
Mm-hmm.
organizations, people, companies pursuing their own personal interest. One of the key elements that we anchored in the Hamlet protein culture is value through knowledge. And that means that, there's no value in acquiring knowledge that you keep inside. You need to convert it into the knowledge you need to convert into value for your customers. And in the end, that in turn creates value for you as an organization. Um, our industry typically is quite reserved where it comes to sharing knowledge, whether it's on the trial work done or insights on what happens on animal level. And we believe by sharing the knowledge that we have, we can
Mm-hmm.
also help support more efficient production methods around the world. And by doing so, contribute to an ever increasing improvement in our industry. So I would say you can talk about many different elements of, or you can dream up different inventions, but it is a sharing of that knowledge and those insights that makes
Mm-hmm.
you support growing stronger together. And if we combine our insights and knowledge across supply chains, then we can truly improve because everyone will have a small piece of the puzzle and everyone will have
Yeah.
a small piece of the answer that can lead to the innovation that can change lives.
Yeah, in this sense, we can enlarge our pie, for everyone, as Bob Emiliani talks, one of the thought leaders we onboarded to CEO World Record. It resonates with me in so many aspects when you speak about collaboration, and I initially kind of want to ask if there would be a possibility, to involve any part of your ecosystem, any part of the entire supply chain, um, whom would you want to invite, to sit at the table and to like really think through how to enlarge that pie and amplify the impact within your industry?
I don't have a particular name in mind,
Mm-hmm.
but I know, within our industry, we come across a lot of bright people. So I think that it's not about the names as much or the specific people. It is about the ability and the willingness of the companies that employ these people to have them speak openly and share the knowledge in broader platforms.
Okay.
Because a lot of times when people find out that they have something You know, they have the right an interesting formulation or different interesting approach to something. They believe it gives them a competitive edge versus their neighbors, and then they like to keep that information in house. And for economic reasons, you can understand. Um, but for improving the entire supply
Mhm.
chain, it would be helpful if we would
Mhm.
be willing to be more open about that, and thus can help create a stronger industry altogether. And that I
Mhm.
think applies to many industries, right? So I'm
Oh
talking
yeah.
for the industry that we are active in, but I think it's a pretty common approach that would help a lot of people.
It should be. And Erik, could you share with me how many years you've been in one or another leadership position?
Well, I started my career. My first job was overseas, and I kind of had a 1 year traineeship, and then very early on in my career, was sent to Colombia to head a district office of the company I was with at that stage. And then I think right at the start of my career, I was moved into leadership positions, and then as my career progressed, these leadership positions got bigger. One notion I like to make is that over the course of my career, I've become less and less interested in elements like turnover or EBITDA when I look at a new challenge. I'm much more interested in what our shareholders and stakeholders wanting to accomplish. What role can I
Mhm.
play in that? You know, you can babysit a company that's well organized and well oiled, that has a huge turnover, but cannot be very exciting. I'm much more triggered and attracted to participating in companies that want to make a change in the way they do things, or they face challenges in entering markets or developing products, whatever.
Mhm.
And that these challenges can be unrelated to the turnover they have. So it's not as much the economic factors that trigger
Yeah.
me when I look for new opportunities. It's always about what is the interest of the stakeholders to achieve, and can I contribute to that?
So it's in a way intention and that deep purpose that is should be aligned with where you are stepping into. I asked this question,
You know,
you know.
many times, Laura, what you will see is in the smaller companies, people are very close to what they do. The
Mhm.
larger the companies get, and even though larger companies have the ability to develop very clear, purpose-driven statements and documentation, due to their sheer size, you will inevitably get into a certain level of bureaucracy, and which will then lead for people in managerial positions sometimes to be very far away
Mhm.
from the field, from the operation where the action happens. Um, and the I've been part of both small and mid-sized companies, as I have of blue chip companies. But what I attract from the mid-sized companies is that the only way to progress is to be hands-on, and the only way to be hands-on is to be very close to your customers, your markets, and your people, and that allows you to make a directer impact than at some of these larger organizations.
Absolutely. And where I want to kind of segue with our conversation is into the because you've been in leadership position for so many years, various cultures, various continents, and I think you can be a very good discussion partner in revealing what type of maybe, wrong privileges coming from this classical management approach. When the company suddenly becomes bigger, you get the title, you get the car, you get certain bonuses. What type of privileges it can be like kind of difficult for a leader to give away. um could you share that?
Well, I think what you can see is many times people are afraid to give up autonomy or control,
Mhm.
and to do so, you need to trust the people that you have around you. And of course, when you look at leadership development, where we in the past, perhaps 20, 30 years ago, people were admired if they knew it all, if they controlled it all. We're moving much more to leadership that creates the environment in which the teams can thrive. Servant leadership, where you facilitate and where you
Mm,
take make your team perform, get the best out of your people. So I think that transition, and of course, from culture to culture, you will see that there's differences. In some cultures, people still want that strong leadership figure. But in general terms, it's always been my belief that if you manage to develop the people that you work with, and the results will inevitably follow. So you need to create the
mm,
right environment for your team to thrive. And of course, you need to make sure that it is clear within those teams what you expect from them. Without clear expectations or without clear definition of what kind of culture you want to create, it can be very complicated. But I think that what is difficult for many leaders or perhaps managers wanting to become leaders is to give up some of that authority, some of the autonomy,
mm-hmm,
and trust the people around them to make it a collaborative effort.
mm-hmm. And why do you think is that? I mean, that we carry out like 100 plus years the same classical or top-down kind of management approach, even though we all do know that things are different. Like, what's your answer?
I think in many cases, Laura, it is also ego driven.
Mm-hmm,
Uh, People that end up in higher senior managerial positions many times have fought hard, have invested a lot of time in that, are ambitious, and so you probably get a certain personality sometimes in these senior positions, and then there's a risk they fall into that same trap. Um, so I think it's just it's human nature
yeah.
to a certain extent, and then it can get very lonely when you are in that top job, and it can be
Mm,
difficult for people to challenge you. So I would always recommend people to open up and get coaching and you could get a way, find a way to get feedback from their environment to keep yourself on the right path and to provide a mirror in front of you of where you are and how you behave, because that's
mm-hmm.
probably the most difficult thing when you get higher up in any organization is it gets probably more difficult for the people around you to criticize what you do or to challenge you, and then you might be uh, perhaps on a different planet than they are. So you have
Oh
to
yeah,
keep yourself grounded.
I love what you just said, that give that alternative. Yeah, you may suddenly find yourself on a different planet than the reality. I often feel that, I've been there myself, as you say, we're human, all of us, and it's probably, yeah, human nature to protect something what we feel that we have earned, and having this fear to be rejected for one or another reason, having then, the the boss's boss measuring, let's say, me on certain budget numbers or KPIs based on local efficiencies. It can be so many different aspects. But I think, as you say, being vulnerable, like recognizing that you are stuck in your own world, in your own little planet, is already such a major step. And then seeking out, to speak with someone professional, or even to speak with your wife, your employees, and be vulnerable enough to open up and ask for, yeah, for simple questions. How, guys, am I doing? Am I on your planet or another planet? Yeah, I love that. I love that analogy, Erik.
And then you have to
And
create a culture, Laura, where people feel safe to speak up.
mhm.
Like it's
Oh
the
yeah, yeah,
psychological safety element is critically important because you need to create an
absolutely, yeah.
environment where people are able and willing to share because they're not going to be punished for speaking their mind. I
Mm.
think that's very, very important.
It is, and it's such a tiny, line. I've been myself an entrepreneur, having hired many people where my money were burning from my own stupid decisions. So I do know that it can be such a thin line when suddenly you look at the cash flows, the investments you have to, to still pay out, and you want your company to be impact driven and purpose driven. So the question would be then, Erik, what maybe business rituals or practices help you to stay, as I say, anchored to that bigger purpose, even when that growth at any cost it kicks in, because it does.
There's no way, Laura, to avoid the economic reality in which we live because, when you speak about businesses, then there is the need to create a profit because with the
Yes.
profit we pay our investments, we pay our people, and we save up for a rainy day. So you need to earn the right to invest. So you need to have a solid economic model, and in the end, the market will tell. Because the other alternative is an NGO or a government-driven organization. But when you then look to businesses, um, I believe that shareholders in general or entrepreneurs themselves, uh, they are allowed or allow themselves to invest in whatever purpose or whatever ESG element they are feeling close to. However, you need to create a solid environment to create both the time that needs to go into any of these efforts or the money, or the sacrifices
Hmm.
that you make or the choices that you make. But without a solid foundation, there's a lot of talk about how industry and industrial leaders need to step up and be part of that. It is very difficult to
Hmm.
have these positions if you're cash flow negative, you can't pay your bills, and you have your employees concerned if they get the salary at the end of the month. So you need to find an economic model that is can sustain itself. And then, of course, from company to company, how much profit do you need to generate, and how much do you need to return to your shareholders, and how much are you allowed or allow yourself to invest? It's a different discussion. But without a
True.
solid economic foundation, your mindset would not be at whatever ESG element you want to drive. Your mindset would still first be to keep your company afloat.
Mm. And do you have like maybe some type of practices in Hamlet Protein and the teams of your company? How do you practice to set up these type of either economical model, or that would help you both to be profitable and at the same time impact driven?
Yeah, for us, the impact driven part, as you mentioned it, Laura, is ingrained in what we do because it's part of what we produce and what we deliver to the markets. But beyond that, there's other elements. For example, we're now starting to dive deeper into a more holistic ESG approach,
Hmm.
which will then also come with sustainability reporting towards our stakeholders. So we're investing time. I think it's first and foremost, it's liberating our employees to invest time in that, and definitely uh, the ability, the fact that we run a profitable organization allows for that. But still, time is also money, so it's a conscious choice.
Yes.
But we believe that
Hmm.
it's not only from our purpose. That purpose is also being embraced by the other elements in our supply chain, by both suppliers and by both end customers. So
I see. Hmm.
it is not always an economic sacrifice as in investing money. It's a lot about time, and I believe that everyone can make a donation or write a check. So that's the easy
Mm-hmm.
part, right? It's about how you use your specific knowledge within the industry segment that you're active in to make a difference. And then it's about engaging the people first and foremost. So you need to create relevance internally and support for that. And once you have your team on board, uh, you will see that people will are willing to go an extra step to contribute to what they believe in, and they are happy and proud to be part of a company that's not just looking at their financial KPIs to see whether they're
Mm-hmm.
successful, but they also involve the broader ESG approach as part of their strategic agenda.
Mm-hmm. I see that totally, totally. It's and what resonates with me it that it is a conscious choice, right? And it's not about only, you know, putting the money in, but it's a choice to find the time and to give the time to become somebody or a company that we want to become. So that's so beautiful. And that my last question is, do you find the days when or the moments where you feel that you stand in your own way of growth? And if you could share with us any of these moments and how did you, you know, step out of that, that would be just so great.
Can you explain the question when you mean stand in your own moment of growth? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, you when you stand in your own way of growth, have you experienced any of these moments?
But you mean by you're blocking your own growth? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. When you, yeah, in a way blocking or stuck. Um,
Um, I think I can think of many examples. Sometimes change goes too fast. You know,
mm-hmm.
whatever you want to achieve, for good or bad, if it's a change from your current course of action, you will have to make sure that you take your team along. You know, and some cultures and some companies are more risk averse than others. But in general terms, whatever change you make, people always gonna wonder how does it impact me? Am I at risk
Yeah,
at losing my job, my responsibilities? Is the world going to change for me? Uh, so whatever your agenda is, if you don't do that right, if you don't explain and involve the people around you, then it creates unrest. And I think in the past, uh, probably I've learned not to go too fast. You know, pause and take
mm-hmm.
time because you might have the best ambitions in the world, but not everyone will see it like you, or perhaps need more time to see that. So, you know, that for me is the most important one. And others are also economically driven. I think we've also gone through different economic cycles worldwide, financial crisis, the COVID, now the inflation and looming recession. Um, so then make choices. You know, we might have a very ambitious agenda, but it might not be able to realize it all together. So make choices and explain why you're making these choices. In the end, whatever you do, it starts with a first tiny step. I once had an interesting presentation of a guy that cycled around the world, and he said the most difficult mile is the first one. He called that the doorstep mile. So your first step into starting
Mm-hmm.
your journey, whatever the journey is the most important because then it's all about the mindset, you know, and about moving forward and deciding, am I really going to do this? Am I really committing to this? And it's always
Yeah,
going
the
to be up,
why.
up, up and down.
Mhm.
Sorry?
Yeah, the why. I mean, being anchored to the why when making that first step through the door. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a
So,
challenging one for whatever it is and whatever your journey is. Yeah, I applaud people for making a first step, and then also it's not always going to work out. So you need to
no.
deal with setbacks and disappointments. You know, I need to embrace them because you learn from them. and that you need to build up resilience. And I guess throughout your career, you learn it as well.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Erik, for being with us. I mean, all of your insights been just really remarkable, and I know that sharing is caring, and collaboration is
Mm.
coming to, I mean, through you to all other industries and other CEOs and their teams participating in this world record. So, thank you one more time for being with us here.
No, thank you, Laura, for inviting me, and I applaud you for the effort. And thanks to all the other interesting leaders that have participated, and your videos are online, and they're a great inspiration. So good luck with continuation of this. I'm no doubt that you will break your record or any record you set your mind
With all of you, we will. Thank you.
to.
Thank
Thank
you
you so
so
much. Bye
much.
bye.